Good morning, friends and family of Conscious Living Spiritist Group. This is a pleasure to be here with all of you. Today, this is Angie Stewart, by the way. And today is the first day of our whole month celebration of the anniversary of Conscious Living. We are celebrating 14 years of life with all of you, friends, family, co-workers, practitioners, and followers of conscious living. So thank you so much for being here with us. Join us during this whole month to beautiful lectures that will be happening on Sundays and on Tuesdays. And right now is the moment for you to share this event, this live with all your friends. Tell them it's starting. Come, come, come. Join us. And while you're doing this, I will be doing our initial reading. I will be using our daily bread, and the chapter will be 163, Be Thankful. So let's follow the reading. Be thankful. And be thankful, Paul, Colossians 3:15. It is odd to perceive the great number of apprentices that are always intent on receiving blessings, while rarely do we find anyone disposed to render them. The spiritual resources, however, in its common mobilization, should obey the same system applied to the providentials of material order. In the chapter dealing with the blessings of the soul, it is not correct to receive and waste senselessly, but rather to be prudent and correct, so that the possibilities are not absorbed by the disorder or injustice. For this reason, in his instructions to the Christians of Colossus, the apostles recommends that we be thankful. Among the earnest disciples, the old habit of manifesting acknowledgement in a bombastic and flattering way is not justified. In the community of workers loyal to Jesus, to be thankful means to apply profitably the blessings received, not only for our fellow men, but for oneself as well. For loving parents, the greatest appreciation from their children consists in an elevated understanding of the work and of the life that they attest to. Manifesting their gratitudes to the Christ, the apostles remained faithful until the last sacrifice. Paul of Tarsus received the call from the Master, and in a sign of happiness and of love, serves the divine cause by the way of nameless suffering for over 30 successive years. To be grateful shall not be merely an expression of brilliant words. Rather, it is to feel the grandeur of the action and the light of the benefits, the generosity of confidence, and to correspond spontaneously in extending to others the treasures of life. Beautiful message. And with this message, let's just relax for a brief moment and do our initial prayer. God, our Mother and Father, thank you so much for being with us at this moment. At this moment, we want to extend these loving vibrations to all our friends who are watching us, to the people that will be listening to this later on, and also to our dear guest, Júlio Carvalho, who will be talking to us, so we can all connected with the Almighty, be well inspired, be able to transfer these beautiful messages to all of us, feeling it in our heart, and putting everything possible in practice on our daily lives. Thank you so much. So be it. So, my friends, today we have a special day with a great friend, Julio Carvalho. Julio is a dear friend. We met many years ago when I still lived in New York City. He is from New Jersey. He is the founder of the Divine Light Spiritist Center, and he has working in Spiritism forever. So I'm sure you guys already heard his lectures. Julio, thank you so much for being here with us. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, everyone from the Conscious Living Group. Uh, for me, it's really an honor to be here in such a special date. 14 years of existence, one can only imagine all the struggles and hardship the entire group went. Um, I constantly reflect upon the fact that a spiritist center, it's a much harder institution to run. And reason being, it's because in a conventional institution, usually you have paid employees that you can actually uh, require from them the work and also require the result that you want. However, in the Spiritist movement, in a Spiritist center, we usually have volunteers. And to have the ability to have volunteers working for free and also doing their job well, it's not an easy task. And for that, I congratulate the Conscious Living Group, all those who have participated throughout the years, those who are on the board of directors, and especially the anonymous workers. These are individuals that fulfill their responsibilities on an ongoing basis. And because, they are not public speakers or sometimes they are not giving passes, it's hard to notice them. But these individuals are of fundamental importance in making the Spiritist Center possible. So all of you who have participated, those who lived these 14 years, and those who came and who went, because if you sum up all the individuals that actually attended the conscious living, I'm sure throughout the years, it has to be in the vicinity of the thousands. Many lives that this Spiritist Center has touched with their hard giving workers. Congratulations to all of you. It's a really um, birthday that is so special. But allow me to make this small knowledge. Being 14 years old, it means that we are still a teenager. And going through the teenage years, the challenge is that you have all this energy, you have all this force, and yet we still lack experience in life. So if one can actually uh, channel our energy for our own good, our future will be awesome. And this is my hope for all of you at the Conscious Living Group.
Thank you, Julio. Beautiful. And you said everything because people pay a lot of attention to the speakers, to the people that are in the front. But if it wasn't all the people behind the scenes helping the kitchen, the cleaning, so many tasks that are so important. And you said everything. We need everybody together. So this is super important. That's why we are already 14 years and another 14 will come soon. So this is a blessing. Thank you. So today our subject is Spiritism, the Consoler. Beautiful. I think it's great to start the celebration of the 14 years. And how do you think we should start talking about it?
Well, just take for a moment to reflect upon the name of your Spiritist Center, Conscious Living. Unfortunately, most individuals, they live very unconsciously because they don't know what life is all about. And as a result, they're at the mercy of what society tells them what life is about. And what you hear most of the time is that we're here just to make a living. And as a result, we direct all of our energy, we direct all of our time, all of our attention. We focus only on material acquisition. And as a result, once we attain these material things, we are not experiencing what we crave so much for, which is happiness. And by all means, Spiritism is not against material wealth whatsoever. It definitely sees as a fountain of progress. However, that is not the entire picture. We must dedicate ourselves not only to progress through material wealth, but most importantly, to spiritual wealth as well, which without it, our material wealth has no meaning. So, this philosophy of life that we study through the lenses of Spiritism gives us that meaning in life. It tells us that we are here to evolve in two different planes. We're here to evolve in the material plane, in the spiritual plane. So that gives us a very foundation of what is the purpose of our existence, which is to better ourselves intellectually and also to better ourselves morally. In other words, to become smarter and more loving and more kind. And I'm sure conscious living has contributed a lot throughout the years to help those who attend the Spiritus Center to become smarter and to become more loving.
Yes, Julio. Yes, yes, and this is what we really want people to understand, because so many people are so connected with the physical thing, like what I have, what I need to be happy. And we understand, Spiritism explains so well that what we are going to have physically are not going to really transcend into happiness, and it's not going to transcend into the spiritual realm. We will take with us what we achieved in the intellectual and in our morality. So this is what we want everybody to perceive, and that's what Spiritism knowledge brings to us. This is very good to start.
Yes, Angie. And our worldview shapes the way we do everything in life. So if I have a materialistic worldview, and let me just clarify what that worldview is, that means you truly believe that you're nothing but a conglomerate of cells. And as a result, when you die, you simply disappear. Your cells, your molecules that compose your body will be recycled by nature to make new organisms. But the person that you were only continues in the memory of those who were left behind. The biggest challenge with this picture here is that it is very useless to help us overcome the hardships that we all have to face. Life is hard, and anyone tells you otherwise, they are deceiving you. And when I have this perception, if I have this worldview that life it's nothing but a conglomerate of cells and I will die, any hardship that I have, and for one, I could either blame myself or if I have done all the work that I need to, and yet the outcome is not what I intended, then I have to blame on bad luck. Um, and these are things that I do throughout life. But there are those situations in which I have contributed nothing to it. For example, a sick child, or my upbringing, my social status when I was born. Maybe I was born very poor, without any means to actually escalate in the ladder of social life. And if I have a materialistic point of view, I have to blame on bad luck. I have to blame on the cosmos. And that leave me very weak, because now I will take the stance of being a victim. I am a victim of the circumstances. So, since our topic is the Spiritism, the Consoler, in what way Spiritism consoles us? Well, to console is to give us hope, is to give us understanding, is to provide us with the psychological tools in order for us to have resilience, give us courage to overcome all the obstacles. And Spiritism explains, Angela, that we have many physical existences, and the hardships that we face in this current physical existence is actually the result of our bad use of our free will. If I have done things that are very unhealthy from the moral point of view, from the physical point of view, I will go through the consequences of those actions in this new physical existence, also known as reincarnation, the action of re entering the flesh. So, as a result of this understanding, I'm no longer a victim. I am responsible. And the very consoling part here is that when we go through these trials and hardships that we have created with our own hands, it's not that God is punishing me, but rather I am being provided with an educational opportunity. Since I neglected the counsel of love, pain come to do its job by helping me transform myself into become a better version of me on a daily basis. So that's how Spiritism consoles us so much.
Exactly, Julio. And it's funny because some people, they don't need to be spiritists, religious people. So they are not materialistic per se. They believe in a God, many different ones, but they believe in a God. And also certain spiritists that really didn't understand the spiritism yet. Sometimes they go to fraternal counselings and they say, God is not good to me because my life is just a torment, and I see so many people happy, and my life is eternal struggle. But it's exactly what you said. They did not understand yet. There is something that they didn't click yet to understand the consoler, to understand that God does not punish us. We are the ones who committed little mistakes in the past, and we have to overcome, we have to learn, and we are constantly improving. So, very, 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 very good.
Well, the reason, Angie, that some individuals, although they might be informed of this knowledge and yet they're not taking advantage of this knowledge by applying it into their own lives, it's because, you know, to know is to do what you believe in. For example, we can sit here and read all the books on football. Would that make us football players? Obviously not. We can watch all the games. We can watch the Jets and the forever. Would that make us football players? Absolutely not. We can read different magazines and we can talk with our friends. Would that make us football players? Obviously not. So there is only one way to actually become a football player, and that is giving our hard sweat in the field by doing our best. And not just one day, it takes practice over practice in order to perfect the skills to become a professional football player. The same principle applies with this knowledge. This knowledge, it's not something that we absorb by listening to others or going to the spiritist center once a week. It's something that we have to dedicate ourselves to really ponder on the consequences of the laws of life. And most people mistaken the understanding of the spiritist philosophy by believing that it's a body of knowledge that was created by a French educator named Allan Kardec. Indeed, he codified, he summarized, he actually organized and edited a book to make easy for us to understand the knowledge. But what Spiritism teaches, it's not created by someone, but rather it's discovered in nature. And any law discovered in nature, it's not the product of men, but belongs to the natural laws. So, for example, when Isaac Newton discovered gravity, the story goes that he was sitting on the apple tree and the apple fell over his head. And at that time, he had this insight. And according to some physicists, he came up with the most important questions in humanity, which is, if the apple is fall, does the moon fall? And this question helped him actually design his equations to understand how different bodies in space attract one another. So he discovered gravity. So this is a very important word here. He discovered gravity. He did not create gravity. Apples always fell before Isaac Newton. So what Spiritism teaches are the laws of nature, the law of work, the law of reproduction, the law of progress, the law of destruction, the law of society, the law of freedom. These are different laws. And when I try to disobey these laws, I will suffer. And once again, this is not because the supreme intelligence have decided to punish us, but rather these laws were designed to take us to our main purpose as fast as possible, which is our self-development, to develop wisdom, to become super smart, and have our intelligence to work for our kindness, for our love. And when we break these rules, when we break these laws that are in control of our lives, we get pain and suffering. So it would be much, much, much more important if individuals rely less on getting help, but rather go to help themselves, to read the book, to actually uh, 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 dive into the knowledge. There are certain questions in this book that you could take a whole day just pondering on the question alone, not even the answer of the question, the
Yes.
question alone, because Allan Kardec, although we don't see him as a prophet of any kind, but someone who was very smart, he designed these questions with such presence of knowledge that you can really learn so much from the question alone. And individuals will profit so much if they gave themselves the time to ponder on these questions and think of the answers. And I'm sure uh, they will have so much resilience. As a matter of fact, in the conclusion of the Spirit's book, part 7, Allan Kardec stated that Spiritism, well comprehended, will lead to three immediate results. One, the lack of fear of death. And why? Well, that's because you finally understand that this is nothing but a biological vehicle. When you or a loved one dies, no one has died. People have just been transferred to the spiritual plane. Where is the spiritual plane? It's right here. The material plane is inside the spiritual plane. So people did not go anywhere, they didn't disappear. So just imagine how much consoling that information alone will provide if people truly understand. And the second consequence is tolerance for the imperfection of others. And why is that? Well, that's because you finally understand that the battles ought to be fought not with others, but inside, meaning we will analyze our own imperfections and would work on them. And because we will find out how hard it is to improve ourselves, we will have tolerance to the imperfections of others, because now we know how much work it takes to become better. And now we know that others are having the same kind of struggle, if not more than us. So that gives us tolerance. And third is resilience. What is resilience? It's when you are able to withstand the blows of life and yet you don't fall. You just keep going because you know these blows have a purpose, not to knock you down, but to make you stronger, to make you move ahead. So those who attend the Spiritist Center, and sometimes they're listening to the lectures thinking of other things, or sometimes they are in quarantine due to COVID-19, and instead of diving to these books, and what are they doing? They're watching Netflix series forever, or the YouTubes, or they're in the social media. And yet here is a great opportunity for them to delve into this knowledge. So I wish, everyone would see how treasure of a knowledge this is in order for them to absorb on a daily basis. And instead of being asking for help and going to fraternal meetings, they will be the source of help for others. And by helping others, you are helping yourself.
Exactly. And, people don't understand so many different ways a spiritual center affecting our lives. So the spiritual center, is our home, is a hospital when we are we are sick and we need like the healing passes, is also the place is a school. That's exactly what you said. It's a school for us to boost our knowledge. There is so much to learn. And I know people love romances because it's really good, it's interesting, there is suspense. But when we dive into the doctrine, into the beautiful books, especially in the 5 books of the codification, we already get amazed, as you said, with the questions, how Kardec really organized everything. I start thinking, my goodness, imagine a normal person like me trying to organize these thousands of thoughts. And he was able to, little by little, start separating and then codifying the different books with better explanations. So this is beautiful. One thing a lot of people always tell me is like, I don't believe in after death because nobody returned to talk to me about it. And I always like, what? They just never paid attention even in history, because if you read the Bible you will understand it. But Spiritism gives us like a further explanation. Besides the Spirit's book, they were answered by the spirits. We have the medium's book to really understand it.
My friend Angela, you said a lot in just a couple of words. So let me just break it down here to make a comment that is proper to what you just said. Those who like to read the novels instead of the study books, once again, um, they can derive so much knowledge to console themselves. And that is the main purpose of why the highly evolved spirits write through mediums these books. They're not writing us for entertainment, although it becomes an excellent source of entertainment because, time really passes by when you read some of these books. The book, for example, Renunciation, written by Emmanuel through the hands of the medium Francisco Xavier. I mean, such a pastime because you really get into the novel. It's like watching a movie. However, this is not fiction. It's something that truly happened. But Emmanuel did not write that book for entertainment, but rather to give us knowledge. When you're done reading that book, the main character of the book, she goes through so much hardship in her existence that when you're done reading the book, it makes your hardships look this small to you. All the problems that you're facing when you compare yourself to that lady, it becomes so small. Now, the problems are still there. The problems are the same, but after reading the book, what has changed is your perception of your problems. And as a result, now you see them being so small. And the other consequence of this is that you have gained strength. So now you are psychologically stronger to overcome all these obstacles. With a materialistic mindset, what happens when you have a problem? Well, you have to blame on the cosmos, or you blame on someone else. And by blaming on someone else, it doesn't mean these people who are the source of your pain will change to improve your life. That's not going to happen. I mean, people do change not to please you, but to please themselves. So as a victim, I am just prolonging my suffering, my pain, by waiting for these unchangeable people to change. And as a result, I will develop despair, desperation. What is despair? Despair, it's when I truly believe that my tomorrow will be worse than my today. And then I ask myself the question, what's the purpose of living? It's just pain after pain. Unless I was born in an ivory castle and everything was handed to me, that there is no point of life here because I'm here just to suffer and to be miserable. Nothing much to do. And although I lament intensely the amount of suicides, and this is not a direct result of COVID-19, I follow suicide numbers for a long time. Although I lament intensely why people are killing themselves, it doesn't surprise me at all, these numbers. And reason being is because if you are in an environment in which what you're taught, what you're conditioned to believe that there's nothing else besides this biological machine, I would truly ask myself, what is the point? But when you try to present the spiritist knowledge, it truly depends on who is receiving this knowledge, who is listening to this for the first time. Because the argument that this is in the Bible or it's in a sacred book, it's completely useless. Some of these individuals are very, very hardcore materialists. So that kind of argument will not render any result whatsoever. So you have to think in the way they think. You have to come up with uh, real scientific experiments in order to bring the issue of something else besides the material realm. And then you can actually draw so much knowledge from quantum physics itself that tells us that the reality is much more than we can understand. There are different dimensions of reality. We just know, three dimensions: up and left, back and forward, and right and left. And quantum physics actually tells us there are different dimensions. And so the argument has to be scientific. You have to speak the language of the listener. Otherwise, you run the risk of having them, without knowing you, already place you in a box, the box of religious orthodoxy. Which means you solely believe in this book that was mainly written by human beings, and this knowledge, it's not. It might be full of. It might be very symbolic, but rather has nothing to do with reality. I respect your faith, but please do not try to push down your faith on me. I fully understand that way of thinking, because unfortunately, Angie, throughout the millennium, people have used a lot of people have used religious knowledge for material gain. It doesn't surprise me why we have so much materialists nowadays, and it's not because of science. It's actually mostly it's because of religious people who misuse the religious information. They do not live a moral life, although they truly say that they believe in the kingdom of heaven. Here they are, preaching the kingdom of heaven and fiercely fighting for the kingdom of earth. And obviously, that brings a great contradiction.
No, and what you said is correct. We have amazing romances, and many times people get curious about what is the Spiritism because of a book. Nowadays, movies, there are beautiful movies like Nosso Lar, Astral City, that was exposed to thousands of people and made a lot of people curious about what is this. But I was referring to those who are already Spiritists and never read the codification. They are romance after romance after romance. So they feel the empathy, they understand, but sometimes it's like, she's an angel, I'm far from that. But they never took the Spirit's book to understand a little bit how they can start their own transformation. This is just for the Spiritist, not to the public in general. So this is beautiful that you went in depth. Another thing, we are also attracting the other side, the materialistic, because now, as you said, science is really diving deep into it. For example, the University of Virginia, there is a program that's not a new program, it's an old program that goes deep in reincarnation and in near-death experience. So right now, this program is directed by Dr. Tucker, but who actually started was Jan Stevenson with thousands of reincarnations, research materials, books that he did. So when the materialists start paying attention to the scientific things, researchers, and all these researchers and doctors talking about it, they start like, maybe there is something else that I didn't grasp yet.
We hope
So
so.
So this is something for us to always merge, like whenever we have conversations with people that are very against spiritism, for example. So you just plant a seed. We should never impose our beliefs, exactly as you mentioned. There are people that have traumas with religion, not from this life, but from previous lives. So they were born already like, this is not for me. But, we know that reincarnations is a blessing because of this. We will pass maybe one life against it, and then something is going to start clicking. And then we start reconnecting with our religiosity, as if I can say that.
Well, when one hear the word religion, and here I am, I'm trying to um, give here an accounting of how free thinkers think. You know, uh, since we are immersed in the religion realm, we have a tendency to believe that most people think the way we do, but they don't. Their frame of thinking it's very different than ours. So free thinkers, when they hear the word religion, what is it that come into their minds? Well, people ripping off people for money, um, uh, child sex molestation, um,
Dogmas.
thieves, those who have abused it for power. And if you study just a little, you don't have to really get into the history, but just a little of the French Revolution, you understand so well why people hate Catholicism, and when they hate Catholicism, they associate obviously the image of the Catholics with Jesus himself, and even we as Spiritists, we forget, the image that we had before of Christ. But the Spiritist knowledge gives us a completely different view of Christ, and once you know that view for a couple of years, you have a tendency to forget what was your idea of Christ to begin with. But a analogy that I usually use, Angela, in order to make people understand um, the importance of dissociating religion from Christ himself, because Christ did not come here to create Christianity. We're the ones who created Christianity in the name of Christ. Buddha did not come here to implement Buddhism. His followers are the one who created Buddhism after him. So this is the analogy I give. Let's say someone is really heavyweight. They are doing so poor with their own health, and they come to a professional and they say, listen, I'm really trying to get my health back here. I want to take care of myself. And the guy sits down with him and says, these are the things you have to do. First of all, you have to concentrate 90% of what you do in what you eat, because you can exercise, your the entire day. But when it comes to food, if you're eating all these calories, an exercise of an hour, you kill with a donut. So let's sit down here and make a plan. So from now on, I want you to cut rice. I want you to cut bread. Oh, please do not even look at sodas. Those are the most poisonous things you could put in your body. And then, cut white pasta. And then for exercise, I want you to try to do 50 push-ups. I want you to start walking 2 miles. And these are daily exercise you have to do. So now this guy looks at this list. He goes home and says, cut bread. Is he out of his mind? I cannot be without my bread. Rice, no way. Pasta, oh my God. Okay, I'll cut ice cream. I'll only have on the weekends. And then 50 push-ups. Oh, maybe I'll do 5, but not 50. Walk 2 miles. I'll walk around my block, and my block is composed of 3 homes. That would be enough. So a whole year will pass by, and then people will look at this guy, and he looks exactly the same. And because he was doing some exercise, what happens, people concentrate on exercise, and because they are exercising, they say to themselves, you know what, I could cut myself a slack. I'd exercise. They eat even more. So they even gain more weight before they start exercising. So now everybody looks at this guy And would it be fair? Would it be honest to blame the trainer for this guy's bad result?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. It's not the trainer's fault. It's the student. So this is what I would say to atheists and free thinkers, anyone that has criticized Christ in the past. Don't blame the individual himself. It's the followers. The followers, being perfect, have imperfected the message. In other words, just like this heavy guy, he, instead of molding himself to the list of things the trainer gave him to do, Christians throughout history, most Christians throughout history, not all of them, have done exactly that. Instead of molding themselves to Christ's message, they have molded Christ's message to fit their own passions. So what you get from this is that one of the most spoken person in history is Jesus himself, and yet it's the least understood, because the message he gave, it's about helping us to progress and evolve. And any progress evolve takes so much work. It takes a lot of effort. It takes spiritual, physical sweat. And because we also follow the second law of thermodynamics, um, any organism, any thing in the universe will state in in a physical state of less consumption of energy. In human terms, we call that laziness. So people, by being lazy and not wanting to do the work, instead of feeding themselves to apply to the message, have changed the message. And Jesus is very least understood because his message is very hard to apply. He asks us for love when people want to hate. He asks us for simplicity when people want to be arrogant. He asks us to work and people just want to do the least as they can. So we change the message instead of changing us.
Another thing, Julio, is that people that are really quick to point fingers to others. Like, look at him. I can't believe he's doing this and he is a speaker. Or look at him and he's doing that and he was talking about forgiveness. So we have all to understand that we are on our path to evolution. Of course, that when you are a speaker, you have more exposure and much more responsibility. But when you talk about everybody else, the ones that are trying to improve, we are trying to improve. We didn't improve yet. So we should control ourselves when we start pointing fingers, because there is that explanation that says there are three fingers pointing towards you when you're pointing one to other, and usually have one going to God that will be telling you, are you doing that? So this is one other point that maybe we should talk about too.
Well, in the 10th chapter of According to Spiritism, entitled Blessed Are the Merciful, we hear from Allan Kardec the explanation of Jesus in accordance to what you just said. The symbolic message of Jesus in having tolerance with others is that he said that we are able to see the speck of dust in someone's eye, but we neglect the beam that it's covering our entire eye. What it's the symbolic message behind this. We are very perceptive of other people's imperfections and we neglect our own. What's the main problem with this, apart from just looking at other people's imperfections, is that you forget the work that you have to do. When you're so concentrated in what others are doing, you forget the work that you have to do. And then it's complete waste of a time. So Spiritism, it's a consoler in this aspect of our relationships, because it tells us that if you're looking at someone and they're really doing a mistake, chances are either you have done these mistakes before, or if you're not very careful, you will do them in the future. When it comes to judging people, it's a big misunderstanding of what judgment is. Some people believe that judgment is to cover your eyes and do not see any mistake in others. That will be Detrimental as actually looking everywhere and seeing good, uh, because that doesn't exist. When we study, when we learn, when you uh, dive into this knowledge, you will have as a consequence discernment. What is discernment? Your ability to choose right from wrong, your ability to make fine distinction. So if someone is making a mistake, Angela, automatically I will perceive that mistake. No question about it. It's like reading. If I have learned how to read, I cannot stop myself from reading anymore. I would look at a sentence and I automatically will absorb the knowledge behind that sentence. So judging, it's not seeing other people's mistakes. We will see people's mistakes. That is the consequence of gaining moral knowledge. To judge is to believe that I will never do what the other person is doing. And it's not with our own head. Obviously, we have to put ourselves in the other person's shoes. In other words, you know, if I was this person age, if I had their biological, cultural, physical experience, their upbringing, if I had their mentality and that kind of problem that they're facing right now, would I do the same that they're doing? Chances are yes, or probably even worse. So, with this mentality, what that gives to you, and this is very consoling, uh, it will help you have compassion. It will help you have understanding. It will help you help the other person. Because the alternative is, oh my God, you're full of mistakes. I don't want to mix myself with you. But if you are a relative, I have to live with you. And that makes my life a living hell. So Spiritism becomes a consoler because it teaches us how to be tolerant with others in that sense. It doesn't mean I agree with everything you say. It doesn't mean I agree with everything that you do. But I understand. Because I understand, I am not against you. And because I'm not against you, I do not attack you.
And Julio, this brings me right to the point of understanding also forgiveness. People get mixed up with understanding forgiveness. They also understand that if I'm forgiving a murder, I'm accepting that it was okay, and it's totally different. It's totally different. We have to forgive the act, but we do not accept it was good. We do not understand it was good. Can you go into a little bit of this knowledge that the Spiritism brings to us?
Well, to synthesize what forgiveness is in the 15 minutes that we have left, it's a big challenge because it's a topic so misunderstood. And this is one of the reasons people don't forgive, because they believe that forgiveness is actually a development of a mental disorder, of a brain infirmity in which you develop amnesia of some sort. They hear all the time forgiveness is to forget. It's not.
No.
Forgiveness is not to forget. However, when you are aware of the detrimental effects of a negative memory on you, you will work on removing the emotional value of a negative memory. Because memories, Angela, they're just like objects. They have the value that we give to them. For example, if you purchase a watch in the airport, that same watch in a mall will have a different price. If you purchase that same watch on Chinatown in New York, where you used to live, it has another price. So emotional value has a relative value that we ascribe to it, just like objects. The value, it's not absolute. That watch value, it's not absolute. Wherever you go would have the same price. No way. It has a relative value. So the same thing with our emotions. So what happens, we place so much value in a negative emotion, and we have a tendency to forget the positive thing that happens to us. We place no value on positive emotions. And as a result, we forget the positive and we strongly remember the negative. And as I remember the negative, I am reliving the negative memory. This is why it's called resentfulness. The prefix re here means to repeat, to do it over again. To scent is to feel. I'm resenting, I'm refeeling this emotion. So if someone stole from me, if someone struck my face 10 years ago, it is to me as if I am re-punching myself over and over again as I remember what this other person did to me. So forgiveness, partially, because like I said, it takes a whole seminar to explain, is to liberate ourselves from these negative memories. It's not doing anything in regards to the other person in a sense that I will forgive and the other person will become better. If I forgive a thief, Angela, the thief will continue stealing from others. If I forgive a betrayer, the betrayer will continue to betray from others. Forgiveness is to give quality of life for me. It's not to change the perpetrator. So when it comes to a murder, for example, that person has to be in jail, because if I don't do my part in placing that individual in jail, chances are that sick individual will continue murdering other people. From the reincarnation point of view, what I'm allowing to do, I'm allowing this sick person, this morally disturbed individual, to actually accumulate more moral debt. So by removing this individual from society, I'm doing him a favor as well, because he's not in the right state of mind to be out with other people. That's what jail is there for. That's what the police law is there to reinforce the law. But if I will every day go to bed crying, hating this guy for what he did, from the jail system, this person would have control of my life. They would tell me how to live my life, because the way I feel, the way I act, that would develop my habits, my character, my destiny. So I'll be miserable because of what this person did. So forgiveness, it's me saying to myself, I would not allow this disturbed individual to control the rest of my life. So what he did to me that day, but I would not allow him to do it over and over again. And that's only something that I can do. I cannot do that with the Prozac, with the Trazodone. I could not do that with morphine or alcohol. It's mental awareness that I acquire through understanding that forgiveness is good for me. It does not change the other person. So this is the point where if I was speaking strictly with a materialist, I would say that's what Christ meant when he said to forgive others, because it's not about the other individual. When you love your enemy, what that means, you are vibrating in a different mental a synchronicity that would not allow you to connect with the other person. In a nutshell, if I hate, that means I'm projecting a mental wave in a specific frequency. If the other person hate me, they are projecting a mental wave in the same kind of frequency. As a result, Angela, we are in sync. I am connected with the person who hates me. So when Christ proposes that I should love my enemy, that means I will vibrate in a different frequency. So even though the other person hates me and they're projecting all the animosity towards me, I am not in sync with that person. I am protecting myself. So that's where I will bring this psychological concept given by Christ in order to make a materialist understand the importance of Christ's message.
Beautiful, Julio. And there is a talk of Bishop Tutu on YouTube. Anyone can just Google Bishop Tutu. And he's talking about his time leaving the apartheid, saying how much hatred was everywhere, how they were so divided. They were using the same streets, but they have places just for black, some places for white to walk on sidewalks and the buses and everything. And he talks about forgiveness. And he explains exactly like that. Forgiveness is for him to be able to love the ones who are not understanding the difference yet. And he explains exactly like this in different words, but saying that if we don't vibrate love, we are vibrating in the same lower energies. So we are agreeing with that in the opposite side. So you are hating too. And that's what we have to change. We have to vibrate love. So when we vibrate love, we go up, and we are able to understand the other ones. At least for me, I like to understand the other one as is temporarily sick. So that's why he has this type of behaviors or talks or attitudes. So we are little by little calming ourselves down to accept the other, and one day understanding they will transform themselves as we are constantly transforming ourselves. And I also have to understand we are not perfect. We are no angels. Maybe we don't hate in a huge way, but we have our issues, we have our difficulties. And coming back to what you mentioned before, we have always to look at ourselves. Come on, you improved in this, and this, but you still need to improve in that, that, and that. So that's what the Spiritism gives to us, this consolation, this understanding that the evolution is constant and forever, but we need to exercise well our free will. That's what we need. Free will is so important in Spiritism. And people, many times, they're like, oh, what is free will? So can you talk a little bit about free will? We have very few minutes, and then we have to end our talk.
Just to recap a little here on our talk about forgiveness, because this is a main topic for so many people. And whenever we do these things in English, because Spiritism, it's disseminated in all different languages, but I think about the English speakers only that will be listening to this lecture, and not necessarily those who attend the Spiritist movement.
Yes.
And I'm very careful for them to understand that we're not naive individuals who believe in these things without any logic or common sense. But Spiritism becomes a strong consoler in that sense, because it tells us to pay attention to the sickness of the soul. And it changes our expectations, Angela, because most of our relationships has to do with what we expect from the other person. And if the other person does not attend to expectations, we become extremely frustrated. That's one of the sources of anger, unmet expectations.
Yes.
So, if you're seeing a blind individual on the street, that is a physical ailment. You don't expect that person to cross the street as fast as you can, or to actually conduct themselves, to ambulate at ease the same way you do. If you see a person on a wheelchair, you have a different expectation because you can readily see their physical ailment. Well, Spiritism helps us to see the spiritual ailment of others, and that changes our expectations. It doesn't mean that we agree with the evil things they have done. It means we truly see how sick they are, because only unhappy people make other people unhappy. So you would not allow a disturbed, unhappy person to contaminate you. During this COVID-19 situation, the people are so scared of contamination. They're rubbing themselves with alcohol. They're washing their faces with alcohol. They're bathing themselves in alcohol because they do not want to be contaminated with COVID-19. But when it comes to anger, when it comes to moral sickness, when it comes to stress, people easily allow themselves to be contaminated by others. Someone is having a bad day, they cut you off on the street. It has nothing to do with you. That's it. And then someone call you and oh, it's one of those days, and we allow someone disturbance to contaminate you. We should be more wiser to understand that spiritual contamination, it's readily disseminated, and I should protect myself with reflections, with positive readings, with the connection of the supreme intelligence, and that's what we call a prayer. So coming back here to your question, free will is directly related with knowledge. The less knowledge we have, the less free will. I think, for example, when you are rearing a child, you're raising someone, do you allow your child to do everything they want? No, you don't. And why is that? Well, because you, as a loving parent, you will make the decisions for your child until your child gains enough knowledge that they can become responsible for their own action. So knowledge brings about free willness, and free willness also develops our responsibility. The more knowledge we have about something, the more responsible we are. So if you have two children and one is 16, the other one is 4, and they spill milk from the table, who is more responsible for dirtying your carpet? Well, obviously the 16-year-old, because he or she has more knowledge. The same principle applies to us. We have free will, our ability to choose A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and so forth. And we have something more than the animals do, because animals, they are our distant cousins in the ladder of evolution. And we have our ability to foresee the future, which means we can actually see ourselves ahead in time and the consequences of our actions. For example, if I am sitting uh, before a problem, and I have a propensity to run away from this problem by intoxicating myself, I could foresee the consequences of this intoxication. I could get myself into a car accident or something like that. You know, I spent 12 years working as a psychotherapist in the jail system, and during that time, I provided psychotherapy for approximately 23,000 individuals. I had to provide stats to the prosecutor and the judge on a monthly basis. And when it comes to drinking, and it really strikes a chord with me, because the individuals who were in jail for vehicular homicide, or because they almost lost their license, none of them uh, were before the accident thinking to themselves, let me get drunk and let me drive my car, and then I will find someone to kill with my car because I want to spend the next 12 years in the jail system. No one thought like that. But before they even got drunk, they knew the possibility that drinking and driving could lead them to an accident. So, although they did not want to get involved in an accident, they were consciously creating the conditions for that accident to occur. So, by using my free will and my ability to foresee the future, I can actually prevent myself from doing harm to others and harm to myself as well. I will foresee and actually think ahead of the things that I want to do, which is beneficial for myself. And obviously, Angela, that requires knowledge. It requires an attitude from our part to gain wisdom by reading any positive knowledge. But because we are in the Spiritist movement, we obviously encourage reading the Spiritist literature that has so much to offer in order to console us. Uh, in closing, one of the biggest consoling factor of Spiritism is that it really teaches us that no matter how hard your problem is, other people have harder. And by looking at them, you will definitely change your perception of your problem, and that will give you strength to overcome any hardship you're facing. Most importantly, always remember your hardships are not things against you, but opportunities to help you develop the potential that lies within you.
Beautiful, Julio. This connects with charity. When we are charitable, we are able to see the pain of the others, and temporarily we forget about our pain. This is one of the main goals of Spiritism also, is to help us to help others. Understanding only through charity we will be able to improve. We could be talking here for extra hours. We want to thank you so much. Our time is up. Thank you so much. It was beautiful. And I'm sure you touched the heart of a lot of people. And hopefully we can have you again soon. But I would like to ask you now to do our final prayer, please.
Once again, my congratulations to all individuals, the anonymous and the known workers of the Conscious Living Spiritist Group, for 14 years of dedicating to this very noble cause, which disseminating this knowledge that will help us to step forward in the ladder of our revolution. And with that, we ask the highly evolved entities, those who are in charge of our lives, to give us all the wisdom that we need, the courage that we must have to develop our potential so we become better versions of ourselves. As Allan Kardec said, to be better today than we were yesterday, to be better tomorrow than we're being today. In other words, constantly progress, always move forward. So be it.
So be it. Julio, thank you so much from deep in our hearts for the lecture. It was very beautiful and it touched every person. Thanks a lot. And my friends, right now we would like to invite all of you to continue with this beautiful celebration, following conscious living through this month. So many lectures we will have. And we want to remind you here, if you can send us your loving donation, the QR code helps you, because even if we are physically closed, we still need your financial support. So whenever things get a little bit better, we can come back, open our doors, and return to giving our lectures, studies, and so many beautiful service. Thank you so much. God bless you all. I see you soon.